Terrifier 3 comes out in just a few days, and I know it's gonna be good, but I had no idea that it was gonna have a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's the critic score. The audience score hasn't even come out yet. I keep hearing from everyone that's seen it that Terrifier 3 is the best one so far. It's just as gory as the second one, but they have more gory parts like the second one all throughout the movie. I have also heard confirmation that the first opening scene is very controversial, but I have not had it spoiled for me yet what it actually is, so I'm very excited about that. I really love that Art the Clown has just become a new household name with horror icons and slashers. He's really made a name for himself, and he deserves it. He's a really fun character. And I know with Terrifier, there's always controversy over the level of gore, but to be honest, I'm just a huge fan of practical effects in movies. That's why I love the Saw films so much, or at least one of the reasons why I love Saw. So I love watching these movies and seeing all the crazy things that they come up with. For reference, here's the first Terrifier. Horror movies usually don't get a fair deal when it comes to reviews on these apps anyway, but Terrifier 2 is at an 86%. That's awesome.
This 15-year-old girl has just been sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole for the murder of her mother. I'm True Crime Caitlin, and this is the murder of Ashley Smiley. Carly Gregg, then 14 years old, attended a high school in Mississippi on the 19th of March 2024. Also at the high school was her mother Ashley, who worked there as a maths teacher. At the end of the school day, Ashley drove herself and her daughter back to their home in Brandon, Mississippi, where immediately Carly jumped out of the car and raced to her mother's bedroom, retrieving a gun that was hidden under the mattress. Hiding the gun behind her back, she planted it in her own bedroom. She then makes her way to the kitchen, where a camera fitted inside of the kitchen captures Carly peering around the corner, potentially to see where her mother is. The camera then captures Carly hiding something behind her back before making her way to her mother's bedroom. The camera would capture the sound of a gunshot, followed by a blood-curdling scream, followed by 2 more gunshots and the sound of thuds. This is the sound of Carly Gregg fatally shooting her mother, killing her in cold blood. Carly then makes her way back to the kitchen and quite calmly sits down and texts one of her friends, asking her friend if they want to see a dead body, to which the friend replies yes. This friend turned up to Carly's house, where Carly took the friend to her mother's bedroom to look at Ashley's dead body. After this, Carly awaited her stepfather, Heath Smiley, to come back home so that she could murder him too. As soon as Heath stepped into the home, Carly raised the gun, pointing it directly at him, and then shot. The bullet did strike him, however it wasn't a fatal shot. Heath struggled with Carly, trying to snatch the gun off her, trying to get the gun out of her hands. Meanwhile, she is still pulling the trigger, still trying to shoot him. Carly shoots 3 more times, one of the bullets piercing Heath's shoulder, and the other 2 missing him. When he managed to pull the gun off of Carly, she quickly fled the home, and that is when Heath would discover the body of his beloved wife, Ashley Smiley, who was very clearly deceased. Carly Gregg would quickly be arrested nearby her home in Brandon, Mississippi, and she was charged with murder, attempted murder, and tampering with evidence. That is because she tried to get rid of this camera, which implicated her in her mother's murder. At the trial, Carly would plead not guilty by reason of insanity. She had a history of depression, self-harm, and she claimed that she could hear voices, and on the day of the murder, the 19th of March 2024, it was noted that she was very irritable and frustrated while in school. Throughout the trial, she showed absolutely no remorse for what she had done. Carly was offered a plea deal where if she pled guilty, she would receive a 40-year sentence. However, she declined this and wanted to go in front of the jury. The decision was made to try Carly as an adult, and at the end of her trial, the jury took 2 hours to find her guilty of the murder of her mother, Ashley Smiley. After this, the jury deliberated for only 1 hour before handing down her sentence: life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Which means that at only 15 years old, Carly Gregg will never live another free day in her entire life.
This girl says that she never believed in God or any religion. However, she started to believe in angels after something she experienced. So this girl lives with her dad and they have a really, really good relationship. And at age 14, the cruelty of life just hit her. And basically she had to grow up and adult way too soon. From one day to another, her dad got really sick. They took him to the hospital and they found out that he had leukemia and it was very advanced. 4 months haven't even passed and he is constantly having to go to the hospital. She doesn't even know what kind of processes he's going through at the hospital until one day when he sits her down and he tells her that he has to stay at the hospital and that she needs to come with him because she's the closest person that he has. Just in case anything happens, I need you to be there and answer any of their questions in case I can't. So he has family. The only problem is that the family lives far away, and that's why he wanted her to be there with him, and in case anything happened to him, she would have to move in with that family that lives far away. And by the way, they love her. It's not like some people that she doesn't know, like she knows them. So she says that when she was at the hospital with her dad, during the day she would crack jokes, she would try to make it happy and just a positive experience altogether. However, she admits that when it was nighttime and her dad was asleep, that's when all the negative thoughts would come into her mind, and it was her and her demons just alone in that room. She says that she would always think about like what happens if my dad isn't here anymore. She would think about like, what if my dad's not gonna be here? What am I gonna do? Where am I gonna move? And all of those like images of her friends that she had made all the time living there came to her mind, and it made her insanely sad. She said that she felt so alone, and it was very, very dark times at night when her dad was sleeping. She explains how like every day she was there with her dad during the day, she would be more positive, more happy, and then when the nighttime would come, she would be more sad, more alone, and more devastated. One day the doctor came and he explained to them that they were going to do some analysis. Depending on how the analysis came out, it would determine how they were going to move forward. And he apologizes to the 14-year-old girl and says, I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but if the analysis are bad, you might have just 1 week with your dad. He also said if the analysis had good results, it could be that he had a few more months to live. She said that that news kind of left her numb because she was happy that she was going to get answers, but at the same time, she didn't know how much time she was going to have with her dad. She says that she felt like someone grabbed her and just like threw her off a building, and she never stopped falling. And that night, when nighttime came, she felt empty, she felt alone, and she had the worst feeling she had ever had at that point. So as she's sitting there just with her thoughts, thinking of all these ideas of having her dad there and not having him there, and just like feeling like she just couldn't stand it anymore, she felt that someone tapped her on the shoulder. And when she looked up, it was a doctor. She admits that she had never seen this doctor before. She said that he was actually very young and smiling, and he asked if he could sit next to her. And she said that she was so out of it that she didn't even realize that there was a chair next to her that entire time, and she agreed for him to sit next to her. She says that the doctor called her by name and said, Valeria, just relax. It is not time for your dad to die. Difficult times are coming and you're doing a great job. I just want you to remember one thing. I want you to remember to enjoy the moments for however long they're gonna last. And any time that you're with your dad, just be thankful. Any time that you spend with anybody that you love, just be thankful. And any time that you are not with the people that you love, life goes on, and so do you. Please always remember this. She says that she doesn't understand how to explain this, but in those times where she was spending those like rough patches with her dad, anybody could have told her anything, and it was almost like it came one ear and out the other. Anybody could have been like, it's gonna be okay, and she wasn't there to hear and listen to their words. However, when she heard it coming from this doctor, it resonated with her. She fully listened to everything this doctor was telling her. She admits that the words that this doctor were telling her made her feel like warm inside, and since that moment on, everything changed. She said that even her mental state completely changed, and even though she had never talked to this doctor before, she told him, thank you so much, doctor. And she started crying, almost like everything she had held inside of her, she just like let it out. And when she started crying, she said that the doctor gave her a hug, and he held on to her for a good 40 minutes until she stopped crying. When she was crying, the doctor was patting her on the shoulder and was like, you're doing great, you're doing a good job, just let it all out, you got this. She said that she finally, after 40 minutes, got herself together, and he he said, okay, well, I'm gonna go, excuse me. And he went his way. And the very next morning, she actually wanted to go look for him because she wanted to say thank you. When she goes to the nurses to ask for the doctor, the nurses were like, we don't have a doctor that looks like that. Said that the nurses were like, well, we're the ones who stayed overnight, and no doctor came in, and we don't have a doctor with those characteristics. Some of the nurses that were there that night told her that they admit to have heard her crying for like an hour, but they didn't want to go in there and just invade her personal space, so they let her cry it out. So she kind of let it go, and at this point they're waiting for the doctor's analysis. The doctor told her and her dad that the dad didn't have more than 2 weeks to live. However, her dad stayed alive for 7 more years. Am I about to cry, bitch? I've already heard the story. What the fuck? She says that he lived just like that doctor told her, and she feels like that doctor was an angel. She says that the day that her dad did end up passing away, those words that the doctor told her came to her almost as if he was there telling her those words again for the first time. Don't stress out, and just be thankful for the time that you had with your dad. This is why I cannot do sentimental story. I'm a Cancer, okay? I'm emotional. Oh my. Okay, I got myself together. But what do you guys think? I didn't get myself together. What is wrong with me?
But yeah, speaking of milk and tuna fish, you hear about those killer whales killing all those great white sharks?
Oh my
What?
god.
Have you heard about it?
I've seen it.
Dude, it's,
Like more than normal?
yeah, it was like this group of killer whales, orca?
Yeah,
Right.
orcas, yeah.
Yeah.
Orcs?
Yeah. Let's not
No.
call them killer whales, okay?
Well, they're
Not-
killing.
I know, not everyone.
Those would
not
be
every
kill-
one of them, though.
I know, but those were killer whales.
Okay, all right.
In like a week span or something, they killed like 25 great white sharks.
What?
Yeah.
What is this vendetta about?
Don't know. Maybe it's their territory.
It's weird.
They just kill them. Like they'll like go and like bite their like.
So they don't eat them.
throats.
They bite them?
So no,
Yeah.
they're not killing them. They're murdering those
Yeah.
sharks.
Yeah. Killer
That's-
whales.
Murderer
Andy.
whales. Murderer whales.
Murder whales.
Dahmer
Aren't,
whales.
aren't they technically dolphins? And that's why they don't know why they're doing it. It could just be
Porpoise?
something like that.
They do it on purpose.
Hey,
Yes.
Some people say the Cinderella castle at Disneyland is haunted. Apparently back then you could tour this supposedly haunted dungeon underneath Cinderella's castle in Tokyo, of all places. And Disney eventually shut that whole amusement ride down because of just how creeped out the guests were getting.
Damate, damate. 이것을 두께가 사람부터 날아배웠지.
Their objective was, let's bring them in, show them these dungeons, and it'll be scary, it'll be spooky, and then we're gonna have a happy ending. But people were genuinely terrified. There was something about the energy in that castle. Some people say the one in Disneyland in California is also haunted. There's just something about Cinderella's castle that either people romanticize it or they think nothing is that perfect. Something about that place is sinister, which is very interesting considering the fact that the real life castle that Disney was inspired by, the Neuschwanstein Castle in Germany, it's got some dark past attached to it. Once upon a time, there was a mad king. His name is King Ludwig II of Bavaria. They would call him the fairy tale king because he lived in his own little Delulu land. He lived in his own little fairy tale land. So 2 years into him becoming king, he loses this big war to Prussia. And instead of being like, hold on, let me face reality. Bavaria is going down the toilet. I lost to Prussia. Let me be strong to my subjects. He decides, no, I'm gonna live in my own fairy tale. I'm still going to rule over the biggest court of all the lands. So he loses himself in building this insane castle on this rocky cliff edge. It's like, I mean, if this were a villain horror story, it would be the villain's lair. But he's like, no, I want it to feel like Prince Charming's home. Rocky cliff. We've got the towers that go up, all the stone, impenetrable defenses in case someone wants to storm it. It's gonna have 200 rooms, a ballroom, a theater with a big stage for all of his court to be entertained because he is the greatest king of all. This would be the Mad King's private escape from reality. And in this castle, he would be the ultimate king. He would actually dress up in medieval royalty clothing. Yeah, as Bavaria, his true reality, struggled with the loss of Prussia, King Ludwig continued to play make-believe. So he loses himself completely in this castle. He was driven mad. He starts borrowing insane amounts of money from foreign courts, going into debt, losing sleep over which room had to be painted what. He wanted each tower to look imposing, look straight out of an episode of Game of Thrones. And the fellow men of his court realized, this man is losing his mind. We are struggling, and the king is playing dress up on his cliffside castle. They decide he can rule no more. He was deemed unfit to rule by his own personal psychiatrist, diagnosed with madness, dethroned, and he was evicted from his precious castle. 3 days later, he was found mysteriously dead. It's suspected he was either murdered or he was a murderer. The King of Bavaria was found dead in the lake next to a psychiatrist who had defensive wounds all over his body. It was clear that the psychiatrist was killed, but what about the king? Did he kill his psychiatrist before ending his own life? Was it an accident, or were they both killed?
I just spent 8 days at Fantastic Fest and I watched 22 movies. So here's all the movies I watched and my ranking from my least favorite to my most favorite. In 22nd place, I have Gazer. This one is very much a slow burn, which I already have trouble with. And this one was just way too much of a slow burn for me, just did not hit. The release date for this one, it says it's October 6th, but it doesn't specify where. Next up, I have Else. I was expecting a lot for this one because it's French and I fucking love French horror movies. And I love weird shit too, but this one was too weird for me, like way too experimental. It lost me completely at the end. There's currently no set release date for this one in the US yet. Next up, I have The Rule of Jenny Penn. This is one that I really wanted to love because the actors in it are fucking icons. Like John Lithgow and Jeffrey Rush are enemies in it. But I just could not get into this one. But the one redeeming quality was the performances, especially John Lithgow was a crazy person. I fucking loved him. And this one's going to be released on Shudder sometime in 2025. Next up, I have Night Call. This is another French film, and it simply just wasn't what I was expecting. If you like action movies, you'll probably like this one. I just really am not a fan of that. This one released in France in August. Its US release is yet to be determined. Next up, I have Little Bites. This is another one that I really wanted to love because I love the actors in it, like Barbara Crampton's in it, Heather Langenkamp makes an appearance, and the performances in it are great, and all of the elements of the film are great. I just think the pacing was not as good as it could have been. This one is releasing on video on demand on October 4th. Next up is The Spirit of Halloween Town. This is like a documentary style movie about St. Helens, Oregon, where Halloween Town was filmed. There were parts of it that were cute. It was just kind of random and all over the place because it follows a lot of different stories. But I believe this one is currently streaming already on Disney+. It just came out a couple days ago. Next up, I have Cloud. This is another one that I just simply don't think it's what I was expecting. This is another good one if you're looking for more of an action movie. This one released in Japan on September 27th, and its American release is to be determined. Next up is House of Spoils. This one went in a direction that I wasn't expecting. I did not hate it. A lot of people are going to compare this to The Menu, but really the only similarity is that it takes place in a kitchen. This one is about this young aspiring chef who leaves her job to start a new restaurant on her own, but the building that she starts it in has a history. Next up is What Happened to Dorothy Bell. This one honestly is kind of just like your basic found footage movie. It wasn't bad, but there's not anything really great about it. And this one also does not have a set release date yet. Next up is Respati, which is an Indonesian film, and Indonesian horror movies are usually fucking phenomenal. I did enjoy this one. It just got a little bit too like superhero-y at the end. This one was released already in Indonesia. Its American release date is to be determined. Next up is Apartment 7A. This one is a prequel to Rosemary's Baby, and as somebody who is like a Rosemary's Baby hater, I actually found myself surprised by liking this movie. And this one released on September 27th on Paramount+, so you can go watch it now. Next up is The Severed Son. This is another one that surprised me because I historically am not a fan of folk horror. And that's what this one is, and I really enjoyed it, mainly because the main character in this movie is such a fucking badass, it's hard not to like it. This one also does not have a set release date yet. Never Let Go. So this one is in theaters currently. We saw this on the opening night of Fantastic Fest. Halle Berry was there. I liked this movie because I think you can interpret it a few different ways, and it's one of those where like, no matter how you determine it, you're right. And I think it's a really great depiction of like generational trauma. Overall, I enjoyed it. Next up is Will and Harper, which really surprised me. Like, I went to this festival mainly for the horror movies and was not expecting to see something so heartwarming that was going to make me fucking cry. This one is a documentary. It just released on Netflix a couple days ago, and it's just so beautiful. I cried the whole fucking time. Plus, Will Ferrell was there for it, so that was really cool. Next up is Bone Lake. I loved this movie. This is an erotic thriller. I heard some people comparing this to Barbarian. The only similarity it has is that two different people rent the same Airbnb, and that's where the similarities end. While I did find this one a little bit predictable, I still really enjoyed how it played out and where the story went. Mr. Crockett fucking ripped. I'm gonna do a full review on this movie because I fucking loved it so much and have a lot to say about it, but this one comes out on October 11th on Hulu. I have hated the last 3 or 4 VHS movies, so I went into VHS Beyond not expecting anything. That first segment played and I literally looked at my friends and I was like, this is gonna fucking rip. And it sure did. Every segment in this one is good. And one of the segments in this, which is the one that the Long Brothers did, is my favorite segment in any VHS movie ever. This one is releasing on Shudder on October 4th. Strange Harvest. So this one was written and directed by the same guy who wrote and directed Grave Encounters, which is really all I should have to tell you. This is a mockumentary style film, and if you like true crime, I think you're gonna fucking love this one. It feels like you're watching a special on the ID channel, but much scarier. The deaths in this one are so fucking gnarly, I can't comprehend how somebody could come up with that. I don't think anybody has bought this one yet, so there is no release date, but I can't fucking wait for it to come out. The Creep Tape. So this was the final secret screening. There were 5 of them, and this was the 5th one. Mark Duplass came out dressed as fucking Peach Fuzz, and I lost my goddamn mind. I don't want to give much away, but the best thing they could have done for the Creep series is make a show rather than a 3rd movie. I think a 3rd movie also would have been great, but the way that they're able to do this and tell so many different stories is absolutely fucking phenomenal. They showed us the first 3 episodes of this. There are going to be 6 episodes total, and it's coming out on Shudder on November 15th. Daddy's Head. This one takes the cake for the movie that scared me the most in this festival. It's difficult to scare me, and this movie fucking did it. If you get scared by Uncanny Valley or Mimic type shit, which I do, this movie is gonna make you shit your pants. This one is also releasing on Shudder. It will be on there on October 11th. This was my most anticipated movie of the festival. This is literally why I went to Fantastic Fest. Terrifier 3. It was everything I could have imagined and more. It lived up to my expectations, absolutely. It also helps that I met the whole cast and crew before walking in, which was so fucking cool. I did a whole review on this one, but I can't wait to watch this movie again. And this one is releasing to theaters on October 11th. I went into this festival thinking Terrifier 3 was going to be my favorite movie I saw, but there was one movie that came out of left field and shook me to my core. And that movie is Heretic. Not only is this movie my favorite of the festival, as of this moment, this is my favorite movie of 2024 by a landslide. No, I haven't seen The Substance yet. I'm seeing it tomorrow. I did a full review on this one too, but this movie blew me away and literally brought me to tears. It was fucking impeccable. And this one is releasing to theaters on November 8th.
There's video footage of Diddy confronting Justin Bieber about, yo, how come you don't talk anymore? How come you don't hang out no more? What? And look what he says. Look how uncomfortable he looks.
Oh, he's stuttering.
He's scared, bro.
Yo,
why is he
no,
scared?
that's weird. That's
what I'm
weird.
saying. So definitely something went on with that relationship.
Yeah.
And 48 hours with him and doing stuff they
And
can't
going
disclose.
buck crazy?
What the fuck does buck crazy mean, bro? What the? Look,
Got the baby oils out.
so last one.
yeah.
This was the lyrics that I was talking about. So he's been exposing it, how he's been a victim of it.
Yeah.
Now check this. This one's really interesting.
Let me see.
Because there's a video of Justin Bieber when he's confronted by Diddy again. They meet up. And it seems as if they're gonna talk about confidential information or even just, I don't know. People are saying in the comments that that's Diddy threatening him.
To what?
Just look. So he links up with him and notice his hand where he goes and touches his chest. You know why he's doing that? He taps it.
Wait, why is he
Guess why?
Because he has a wire?
Yes! He's looking for a wire. And then people are saying he did that, then he whispered the information.
Remember I got them tapes?
Yeah! People are saying he whispered right there to his ear. Just remember I got those tapes.
No, the tap is crazy.
Because he's like, you know? Bro! That's crazy.
That's insane.
That's so crazy, fam.
Nah, that's weird, man.
I know.
And fuck, yo, putting yourself in Justin Bieber's shoes, it's so fucked. I understand why, he acts the way he acts now.
If you hear this scream in Alaska, run away. Hello, my name is Urban. I am a Yuri. It is no secret Alaska is home to some very dark energy. And although we don't have evil intentions, we we're still very dangerous. We are big in size, standing 10 feet tall. But we are just scared little children on the inside. We all were once little humans who wandered a little too far away from civilization, and were found by each other. How we were transformed into this creature is unknown, but hundreds of sightings have been reported about us, making us out to be hostile creatures. We try to avoid humans, but are most commonly seen while we are hunting. We use our glowing eyes to spotlight deer and stun them. Then we all surround it and begin to smash our fists down to eat it. But when we are spotted, we all scream. Most of us run away, but sometime one stays behind to protect the others.
Have you ever heard about the Barefoot Bandit?
Nah.
Bro, craziest teen. This teenager was 16, running away from the FBI for 3 years. His name was Colton Moore, and his upbringing was trash. Like, his mom barely took care of him, and when he actually, like, wanted to eat, his mom was like, oh, no, I'll give you the bare minimum. Like, 1 hot dog, you're good for the day.
What the fuck?
Yeah, like, so, it was, like, dead-ass starvation.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, nah, F this. I'm gonna run away, and I'm gonna steal food for myself.
Oh.
So, in the neighborhood he's at, he goes to the forest, and he starts robbing houses. Going into their fridges, grabbing all the thing, taking it back to the tent that he lives at, right? Becomes a household name. This is when the chase starts. This is the plot twist. He starts stealing planes.
Wait, what?
He goes into, like, you know, like the terminals?
Yeah.
And he starts
Hijacking planes.
hijacking planes. And he ends up, fam, in Bahamas.
How does he fly? How does he know?
There was an interview, right?
Yeah.
He said he learned all this from video games.
Bro's playing Flight Simulator.
No, so he's in Bahamas, stealing cars, he's hijacking boats, all at 16, bro.
This is my new favorite psychological thriller and quite possibly one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen, both visually and thematically. Bibi is about this woman named Vivian who is battling this grief and trauma, and she has a daughter named Bibi who is kind of like caught in the middle of that. And Vivian starts to be stalked by this dark figure, and reality around her starts to blur. You don't know what's real, what's not. I truly think that this movie is the most beautiful representation of a woman's grief and trauma and struggles with mental health ever put on screen. Personally, I feel like movies are overdoing the theme of like grief and trauma, and I think it's getting kind of old, but this movie completely renewed it, did it in an entirely different way. And I honestly think this is now going to be like the standard for me of what a movie about grief should look like. And I'm so excited I finally get to talk about it because I watched this movie Bibi about 3 weeks ago and I've been waiting to put out a review until it released, which it did on Friday. So the director of this movie reached out to give me a screener, and I watch so many screeners and I don't talk about most of them. I still have the link to this. I can watch it for free as many times as I want. I just bought it because it needs to be supported because it is that fucking good. So before somebody tries to be like, you were paid for this review, bitch, I paid for this. I paid for this review. This is one of those movies where it finished, the credits rolled, and I swear to you, I sat on my couch for 10 minutes in the darkness and the silence, just staring into the abyss, processing. And I was so moved by this movie, I proceeded to send this email to the director to thank him for his service and beg him to make more movies. And this really sums up my review. This is one of the most stunning films I've ever seen visually and thematically. I'm blown away. It literally brought a tear to my eye. I'm absolutely going to be doing a review on this. Everybody needs to experience it. It's one of those where you feel like you're going crazy with the main character, but by the end, all the questions that you had throughout the whole movie are answered. As I was watching this movie, I was writing down some of my thoughts because I really was watching it and I'm like, I can't believe I'm watching something this beautiful unfold in front of my eyes. Everything about this movie is fucking perfect, honestly. This is a 10 out of 10 for me. The performances are fucking incredible. The costumes, the set design, it's just visually gorgeous to look at. The sound design is a big fucking part of this movie. There is this one scene where nothing sad is even happening, but there is this music playing in the background and your main character is running and the moonlight is shining and her dress is flowing. I literally cried. Again, nothing sad was happening, but I cried because I couldn't believe I was witnessing something so fucking beautiful. That's why I wrote tears. The story in this movie, I think, just unfolds in such a perfect way, and it is just such a beautiful telling of trauma and grief and how that can be overcome. I honestly have so many good things to say about this movie. It's hard to even put it into words because, again, that's how much this blew me away. Not only is it my favorite psychological thriller, I think, now of all time, this is probably in my, top 10 of the year. I would even go so far as to say my top 5 of the year so far. If you want to check out Bibi, I got it on Amazon. You can rent or buy it there, and I think it's also on Apple TV. 10 out of 10. Stunning.
We might have found it. I've been wanting to do this one for so long, and we're finally doing it. The lost city of Atlantis. Maybe it's not just a myth, it's time. Everyone knows the story. Advanced civilization existed long ago that got lost under the sea. And there is a location in the Western Sahara Desert of Mauritania known as the Eye of the Sahara, or the Richat structure. Yeah, this one's been beaten to death by all the Atlantis hunters, but it does have striking similarities to Plato's definition of the lost city over 2,000 years ago. Concentric circles, 3 of water, 2 of land, opening to the sea in the south and mountains to the north. White, black, and red stones and an abundance of gold, all of which are prominent features of the Mauritania region. Not to mention, it was even recorded on this ancient map by Roman geographer Pomponius Mela around 43 AD as Atlante in the same geographical region as the Richat structure. You ever get tired of me saying it must be a coincidence? And the debunkers are likely cringing right now, which is sort of my specialty, as the Richat structure is one of their favorite sites to shit on, even though it is one of the least studied places on Earth, as it is in a very remote area. You know, red zone, super dangerous, overrun by rogue military forces type shit. But follow-up LiDAR scans of the area did have some interesting finds. Thousands of what appear to be ancient man-made structures found beneath the sands of the Eye of the Sahara. Definitely not something we could call natural. Not necessarily proving Atlantis, but showing that an unrecorded civilization existed in this extremely remote desert sometime in the past. But further in-depth excavation of the region is conveniently too risky to pursue, and any career archaeologists found supporting Atlantis will get mocked and discredited in their communities, so they just try to avoid it. But where did this idea of a lost advanced civilization that sank beneath the ocean even come from? The earliest formal account is by famed Greek philosopher Plato around 360 BC in one of his many dialogues about a perfect utopian society called Atlantis, which was governed by Atlas. You know, that guy who holds the world on his shoulders. Atlantis roughly translates to Island of Atlas. In Plato's writing Critias, an ancestor of his named Solon visited Egypt way back in 600 BC, where he's told by Egyptian priests of this great advanced civilization that was destroyed by a flood 9,000 years ago, whose story has been passed down for generations and is recorded all over the temples in Egypt. Now, 9,000 years ago from that time would be around 9600 BC, conveniently aligned with the Younger Dryas impact, a hypothesized event that resulted in global cataclysms that flooded the world that is scientifically backed by geological core samples. And Atlantis was around for much longer than that. 9600 BC is just when it got wiped out. It's here where Plato described how it looked with great detail, which many claim is just a myth, a work of fiction that he wrote. And Plato did write many dialogues of presumably fictitious events, such as the allegory of the caves or conversations among friends in the Republic. But he would make it quite obvious in his texts when these fictitious dialogues were just stories that discussed hypothetical, philosophical, or moralistic ideas. In his dialogue Critias, he describes Atlantis in great length, providing super accurate details and dates that had little connection to his overall message of the story. And the strangest part of Critias is that it just ends in the middle of a sentence. Yeah, he didn't even finish this story, as it just comes to an abrupt end as soon as Zeus is about to give an epic speech. Was there someone who told him to stop writing? Did he actually finish it and it was later erased from history? Or was it just fiction that he got bored of and he moved on to other writings? We can honestly never know for sure, but this isn't the last time Atlantis is mentioned in history. But these stories, right? They're just made up myths. Where is the evidence? We'll get to that, because the Temple of Edfu in Egypt has carved into its walls a story about a lost civilization that got flooded and destroyed by a great cataclysm, sounding like a broken record at this point. And Egypt has a recorded lineage of kings that goes back over 30,000 years, but is commonly regarded as just a myth. According to these Egyptian myths, in these earliest of times was a god named Thoth, who was born around 36,000 years ago in an idyllic civilization, where he accumulated great knowledge about the world, the universe, astronomy, writing, government, and even how to achieve immortality, and recorded them on giant slabs of green stones known as the Emerald Tablets. Everything was all fine and dandy until that pesky flood rolls along and destroys everything around 11,000 years ago, 9600 BC. Thoth survives the deluge and is instructed, among a few others, to pass the divine knowledge of the Emerald Tablets on to the next generation. One of the places he visits was a region called Kem, which we know today as Egypt, where he reintroduces civilization to a land of savages. He taught the early pre-Egyptians how to write with hieroglyphics, along with astronomy, agriculture, governing, and all the basics of civilization, and allegedly introduced them to the pyramids, which were leftover relics from Thoth's original civilization that got destroyed by the global floods. A similar version of this story is also retold in the Phaedrus, another written work by Plato. Some claim that Thoth was actually Atlantis Atlantean, and that these mega structures around the world like the pyramids, Easter Island heads, Kailash Temple, Gunung Padang, Saskatchewan, and so on are all relics of the Atlantean Empire. Because according to this, Atlantis wasn't just a city or an island, it was a global civilization that existed over 30,000 years ago, and we might just have the evidence for it. Okay, I'm so sorry, but I'm gonna have to make a part 2. I hate doing this, but there was just too much to fit into one video, and I know you wouldn't have watched this if it was like 15 minutes anyway.
Here are some horror movies for you to watch that are based on or inspired by true events. Now before we get into that, if you love all things horror, all things spooky just as much as I do, be sure to hit that follow button. Things Heard and Seen follows a young artist who moves to a small town with her husband, and soon enough she discovers that this town is harboring a dark secret. One so dark and disturbing that not even they could prepare for it. It stars Amanda Seyfried and it's available to watch on Netflix. Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile is all about Ted Bundy. It follows a single mother who fell in love with Ted Bundy, and for years she refused to believe that he was responsible for the acts and the crimes in which he committed. The movie explores the relationship between these two people. It stars Zac Efron and Lily Collins. It's available to watch on Netflix. The Stepfather follows a serial killer who preys on single mothers and their family. He gets into the family and he uses them until he doesn't need them anymore. And once his new family is no longer of use, he kills them all. To think that something like this actually happened is absolutely insane. And the fact that the guy in the movie has done it over and over again without being caught is even more wild. It stars Joe Goldberg, Penn Bagley himself. Check it out on Prime Video. An American Haunting takes place in Tennessee in the 1800s, and the story of this movie is wild as hell. It's the only documented case in the US where a spirit was the cause for someone's death. It follows a family in Tennessee who were visited by a spirit that was haunting them, which caused for the death of one of the family members. So for whoever doesn't believe in ghosts or evil spirits, you might want to check this one out. It's available on Tubi. Devil's Knot follows a West Memphis town that made national headlines in the United States for a horrific case. In this case was 3 teenagers who were arrested for the brutal murder of 3 young children. Yeah, it doesn't get much brutal or worse than that. This one's a hard one to watch. You can check it out on Hulu.
If you're looking for some fucked up movies that just might make you sick, I got you, because I'm back on my bullshit. I'm Chuck. I'd love to be your movie guy. Hit the like button, give me a follow, and this is 5 fucked up movies that will make you sick. Found is not an easy watch, and it's about this little boy that finds out that his brother is a serial killer, and pay attention to the TV screens in this one for the next slide. Found is an incredibly fucked up film. If you made it through Found and you paid attention to the TV screens, his older brother was watching a film called Headless. And Headless is the film that was playing in Found. Listen, this movie is low budget, but it goes fucking hard and it absolutely rips and will make you sick. We Are the Flesh pushes the boundaries of everything, and it's about 2 siblings that are wandering around a post-apocalyptic city, and they go into one of the last buildings that is standing. They meet a man, and the man tries to strike up a deal with them in order for them to survive, and the things that he asks them to do are absolutely incredibly fucked up. This is heavy trigger warnings, but this movie rips. Skinless is about a brilliant medical researcher named Dr. Peter Poole who contracts cancer in the prime of his career. He is working on a new drug to cure cancer, and he uses himself as a guinea pig. And look behind me, the fucking results are so fucking gnarly. Skinless absolutely rips. Eyes of a Stranger is an oldie but goodie starring a very young Jennifer Jason Leigh, and she is a newswoman who lives in this building and suspects that one of the men living in the building is a serial killer who has been raping and murdering women. This one's gnarly. It's a little bit older, but it's one of my all-time favorites because it's an absolute fucking banger. So let me know in the comments if these movies, if you've seen them, if they made you sick. I'm Chuck. I'd love to be your movie guy. Hit that like button. Give me a follow.
There's this article that came out 1934 in the LA Times. It was called Lizard People's Catacomb City Hunted Underneath Los Angeles, California.
Shut up.
Interesting.
This man named G. Warren Schufelt, and he had developed this X-ray penetrating technology to where he could scan different rocks and stuff. He was in LA on this hill called Fort Moore Hill, and he drilled like 200 something feet down, stuck it down, and he's like, what the heck? There's tunnels and really big rooms. and a lot of gold. He's like, what the heck is this? He was telling someone about it, and they're like, you need to come meet someone. So he went to Arizona, and he met with Little Chief Greenleaf. This Hopi elder said, what you just discovered is one of 3 lost cities along the Pacific coast. There was this people group called the Lizard People. They were called the Lizard People because their idol was a lizard. This Hopi was like, this was a civilization. He said they were so far advanced technology-wise that they had this chemical that they would use to basically bore out the tunnels. So they didn't use shovels and picks. He described the Lizard People's city being amongst these certain hills that exactly line up to where this guy found the thing.
Wow.
Jujutsu Kaisen has officially ended today, so these are some Shonen Jump mangakas that pay tribute to the series coming to an end. Hokazono, the mangaka of Kagurabachi, said, thanks to Todo, my life has surely become more richer every week, more and more joys. Tozuka, the creator of Undead Unluck, said, I love the expressions, the dialogue, and the emotions Akutame-sensei drew. Truly appreciate all the hard work he did for the last 6.5 years. Suzuki, the creator of Sakamoto Days, said, congratulations for these 6 years. I fanatically read the series every single week. It's truly the coolest manga ever. Matsui, the creator of Elusive Samurai and Assassination Classroom, said, thank you for all of your hard work, Akutami-san. You have a lot of talent still to show, so please come back soon. Wakui, the creator of Tokyo Revengers, said, Akutame-sensei, thank you so much for your hard work these last 6 years. Jump wouldn't be what it is without Jujutsu Kaisen. And there's many, many more mangakas that I don't know who they are. But yeah, Jujutsu Kaisen will go down in history as one of the greatest.
If shocking, brutal, and uncompromising folk horror is your thing, I promise you this film does not fuck around. I'm Chuck, I'd love to be your movie guy. Hit the like button, give me a follow, and welcome to the world of Witte Wieven. Witte Wieven is also titled Heresy in the United States, and the thing that this film does that other folk horror films do not do is it does not fuck around getting to what it wants to show you. It centers on a woman named Frida who is from a medieval Dutch village and she is unable to have children. This causes her deep ridicule within the village and especially at home with her husband. After getting the results of a fertility test, she is forced to look for outside ways to solve her problem. Witte Wieven comes in at a very lean 61 minutes and it pulls no punches getting to the point. We are introduced to the characters in this vast cinematic landscape that's absolutely beautiful to look at. Then we are presented with a protagonist and a problem. It only takes about 15 minutes or so for Witte Wieven to get into the meat of the story. And that it does. This is an uncompromisingly brutal folk horror film. It crosses into the supernatural and it has absolutely incredible practical effects. It is a film that never gives you the opportunity to catch your breath. If you love folk horror, you need to see Witte Wieven because it's one of the best folk horror films in years. Witte Wieven releases on October 11th and you don't want to miss it. I'm Chuck, I'd love to be your movie guy. Hit the like button, give me a follow.